Hey guys, Bix Weir, Roota.com. I actually just finished my Horn of Disease this morning, and the app I use says we had a problem recording. Half an hour of it was a good one too, a lot of work. So I thought I'd just post this on in lieu of the morning Horn of Disease. I'm doing this on Zoom just until I fix my other program. But I do want to talk about a couple of the big highlights of kind of an overall what the hell I'm thinking on certain things. Because I think it's important now. I mean, I've been doing this for 23 years now, fighting the same fight. Different tools I've used and discovered along the way, and it's been an amazing journey. But we are at the end, or nearing the end, obviously, of the entire game. And it's taking out the bad guys. It's sinking the deep state. It's all kinds of different things. Changing to a new monetary system, maybe, or adjusting the old one. I know a lot of people believe in a lot of different theories, and I've heard so many over the 23 years I've been doing this. The latest is XRP and the quantum financial system. It is all proven to be a bunch of crap, if you ask me. A bunch of hearsay, a bunch of people looking to benefit, especially the guys at Ripple, off of the backs of the people. So I don't trust any of it, and that's the key to the future, is not trusting any of it. You're gonna learn the hard way. I've learned the hard way many times. You can't trust people when it comes to money. You can't trust anybody. Trust will be gone, especially from government officials, banking officials, world government officials, obviously, and even your Congress people, your local people. It's time for trust to go away, and that's why one of the reasons I'm very excited about a crypto type of future. Although I think probably 90% of the coins that are out there right now won't be around in another year. So don't get too widespread, in my opinion. But these are all my opinions through my own research. And if you followed me long enough, I back up most of it. I explain why I think certain things. Let's talk about, I wrote some things down, some of the higher level topics that I want to give you my take. This is just my personal take on what's going to happen. First, let's talk about the death of the dollar. The current dollar, the US dollar that was created, is a Federal Reserve note. It's a debt. Created in 1913 to manage an incredible find of massive amounts of gold in the Grand Canyon area, all up and down the Colorado River. Most of that gold's still there. And there's a lot of secrets there that I do think the U.S. found some of what they call the mother lode of any gold mining operation. The mother lode is the original spot where the gold was formed, and then placer gold downstream, you find little nuggets and things like that. Basically, it's a wear down over time of the mother lode. I think the U.S. did find a mother lode or a few mother lodes in the Grand Canyon, which would completely distort the amount of gold there is that the media and the bankers, the bank analysts like Jeffrey Christian tell you how much the gold is, how much gold there is in the world. I think it's artificial scarcity. I think there's over 1 million tons, not 200,000 tons. And I put a ton of research and backup. And you can start by reading Sterling and Peggy Seagrave's book, Gold Warriors. A lot of the gold bugs just refuse to go down that path because they're not open to changing the mindset. They know what it would do to the price of gold. Although I don't think it would do anything. The price of gold is just as rigged as the price of silver. But the bankers don't really care that much about the price of gold as much as they care about the price of silver. For example, they've allowed gold to increase in value over double since the 1980 all-time highs, whereas silver, they will not allow it to even hit the 1980 highs. That's why silver's trading at $22 and gold's about 2,000 when it was 800 in 1980. So that's kind of what I think is going on. The numbers are fake. And so what will happen to the banks? In the late 90s, Alan Greenspan and Larry Summers and Robert Rubin got together and said, hey, let's let the banks not report any derivatives on their books so they can do more with the banking sector. And Greenspan agreed. I don't know if they was in cahoots with the other guys. Definitely agreed for one reason. He knew the banks would build up their derivative positions so big, and it would be so dangerous that they would ultimately implode and destroy themselves. And that's kind of the key. You can't have someone deciding you, Mr. Bank, are closed because we just saw it with Silicon Valley Bank, right? They cannot allow people, the normal everyday people, to be destroyed, because then the whole concept of fractional reserve banking comes crying to the front door saying, why do we keep our money in the bank again? When they take our money, they lend it out 10 to 1. They create $10 for every $1 we put in there. And then, they get bailed out when they come crashing down from all their crazy bets. It's a bad system. But if they don't bail out the little people, they're screwed. So they always have to bail out the little people by bailing out the big people. That's how bad this is getting. I do think the banks will be on a short leash. I think there's a couple different plans for them from the good guys, as I call them. One would be to what is going on right now. Everybody's taking their deposits out of the regional banks and the smaller banks and putting them in the big banks because they know they'll bail out the big banks. Or they might even think, oh my God, the big banks are so strong that they'll survive. I think it's exactly the opposite. I think the good guys are getting people to remove their banks from the regional banks to put them into the bigger banks, the JP Morgans, the Citibank, the Bank of America, Deutsche Bank, all those, in order that when this system falls apart, those are the banks that are going to be blamed. It won't be the regional banks because they're already on their knees or gone. It will be the derivative monster banks that will be destroyed, and that's where the angle will be placed. And what that does is gives the system an opportunity to reboot other banks, the smaller banks. You take out the big banks with all their derivatives, it takes out everything. But when you start up again, should we have banks or should we not have banks? That's been a question on the road to Roota for a very long time, since I discovered the Fed documents. I always thought they would, as the banks crashed and gets destroyed, we would start a new banking system within the U.S. government, having the branches be the post offices, because most post offices have the ability to transact in like wires and things like that, but they're all secure. If you go into your post office, most of them, they have bulletproof glass and all that, at least in the big cities. So it kind of looks like a bank. It can act like a bank. And if the U.S. is the one, if the U.S. government is the one handing out the new form of money, say gold and silver, with a blockchain component, but each ounce of gold and silver is identified with your own identifier on there, blockchain identifier on the actual piece of metal, that would possibly work. That's one of the ways. But you could also do that just getting rid of the big guys, getting rid of the derivative players, and go to the regional banks to do all the banking, and have limits around how much they can create out of thin air and things like that, to rejigger the system. I think they're leaning more towards that, and that's why they're getting all the regional banks to remove themselves from the system, such that all the money goes to the big banks. So when the big banks crash, they get the blame. That's one potential. The other is the exchanges. I know there are a lot of people who say for a capitalist economy needs exchanges, but they need exchanges that actually work and are not rigged by the big players, which we have now. They're all rigged 100% with computers and derivatives. And this is what gets into Veritasium, which is the invention of Reggie Middleton. It was peer-to-peer transactions. Very early on, Reggie saw the potential for the blockchain and got a few patents on peer-to-peer transactions. So you don't have to go through the Goldman Sachs of the world or the Jamie Dimons of the world or Fidelity or any of that. You don't have to go through them, that's where the rigging happens. You can transact with people peer-to-peer on an exchange. So Joe has a share of Apple stock that he wants to trade. Sue doesn't have a share but wants one. Veritasium can facilitate that kind of transaction, as well as transactions related to the new system as far as gold and silver. Veritasium is all about peer-to-peer transactions in capital markets. So I do think we'll see a lot, and that's why I believe that the U.S. approved Reggie's patent. It wasn't just to throw a monkey wrench into cryptos, which it obviously has. I think they will be Cliff High's data is correct, the government will be coming to Reggie to say, okay, we're going to give you your 98 million tokens back out of the 100 million he created. And then if you help us, continue the system of exchanges, but take out the criminals. And this is what it would do. That's a long way down the line, though. It would have to be after the crash. And the crash would have to be so ugly that everybody goes, oh, my God. And I think that we are headed there this year, I believe. So we'll find out. So, yeah, I do think the exchanges will be closed down and then brought back up as a different system. Jumping right to gold from there, I do think there's massive amounts of gold, as I've talked about many times, over 1 million tons of gold. Guys like Jeffrey Christian will tell you there's only 200,000 tons. Remember, who owns that gold? Who owns most of the gold in the world are the banks, the banking cabal, the bad guys, as I call them. They own most of the gold. So, yeah, they're going to want to go onto a gold standard, just like they did in 1900. In 1900, the U.S. was forced onto a gold standard, which wasn't that bad of a thing, except for one thing. They locked in the price of gold at $20.67, which was just right at barely the great mines could mine gold at $20.67 at that time. But all the fringe mines couldn't. If your costs were too high, and then from then on, costs just escalated massively, especially with the invention of the Federal Reserve System in 1913. That's when money printing really kicked off, but the price of gold was still set at $20.67. So all the mines were going bankrupt, which means less supply coming into the market. And then in 1934 and 33 and 34 is when Roosevelt said, all right, let's get rid of these bankers. They confiscated gold. Remember, the bankers had all the gold. It wasn't the people. The people had silver for the most part. But they confiscated it, and then like days after, they changed the price to $35. Well, a lot of people said, oh, they're just trying to steal the money. No, all of a sudden, $35 meant that gold was profitable to mine on the fringes. But then there was all kinds of things that went on, and World War II started, and it just got a little crazy and sideways. But from 1934 on, it was illegal for U.S. citizens to hold gold in the investment form. So a lot of people play with jewelry. A lot of the rich people, oh, yeah, I'm just buying jewelry, and massive amounts of jewelry that went under the radar of the powers that be, that it was illegal to hold gold. And then 1971, we went off the gold standard because France was cashing in the promises that the U.S. made, and we didn't have the gold, so we just went off it. And that's the invention of computer programs by Alan Greenspan in the early 70s to rig the price of gold and rig all prices such that you can go off a gold standard and run an unbacked floating system. And that floating system is what is about to die today. I don't think there'll be a petro yuan or a petro ruble or any other fiat monetary system based on oil. And it wasn't based on oil. It was based on the fact that the Saudis and everybody had to buy oil in U.S. dollars. That's artificial, gave artificial support to the U.S. dollar, then back to that system. But also all the price of oil and the dollar and the price of everything was rigged by the computer programs introduced by Alan Greenspan in the early 70s. He blames himself for Y2K because he didn't put 4 digits. I think he didn't think it would last that long. Truthfully, this is a long time for an unbacked fiat system to last. But yeah, he blames himself for Y2K, and they spent trillions of dollars fixing it in the 3 or 4 years leading up to it. So there was just minimal stuff that went wrong. But it had to be done. Had it not been done, then the entire system would have blown. And that's how fragile this stuff is, by the way. So yeah, I think there's tons of gold. I think when this system ends, it will be a derivative issue with the big banks destroying everything, and then we'll go back to a gold and silver standard because it's already in our Constitution. We already have the documentation. It's been approved. Although most people have forgotten about that, it's okay. They're going to understand, starting to understand inflation. They're really going to understand that your money is held by a third party and you have third party risk. And that's the worst part about this thing, is anybody with third party risk is going to lose it. And it'll cascade upon each other. So yeah, that's where we're headed. Now, silver, on the other hand, is a different monster. Silver is both a monetary instrument. It was used as money a lot more than gold was in history. Gold was rarely used as money. As a matter of fact, it's a store of value, definitely, but used as money, not really. It was silver that was always used as money. Even back in 1934 and 33, when the U.S. Made gold illegal to own, you had to turn in all your gold. You didn't have to turn in your silver. Silver kept running until 1965, when, after they killed Kennedy, they changed that. So yeah, that silver is the Achilles heel, shall we say, of the criminal banking cabal, the deep state, all of it. It's silver. It's not gold. They have plenty of gold. As a matter of fact, at some point they want that price to rise. But it'll bring in a lot of new gold. So it's a damned if you do and damned if you don't. The control mechanisms is what is going to be going away. And then if we have peer-to-peer transactions on exchanges, that would be great. No more Virtu Financial and Vinny Viola in the middle of the comics rigging every price for the banking cabal. Click a mouse and you can make silver dance like a monkey. And gold and the U.S. dollar. They rig the U.S. dollar. It's absolutely not freely traded. Paul Volcker is the first guy to introduce supposedly for floating currency trading, but he did it while Alan Greenspan was implementing his computer programs to control the prices. So that's all gone on. And then we get to crypto invented by Satoshi Nakamoto. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? There's a lot of people involved in it. It is, I believe it is part of the U.S. government was the entity that really introduced it. We did a remote viewing on it, and it clearly had Alan Greenspan in there. Alan Greenspan is the guy who invented financial computing back in the 60s. The reason we have, electronic accounts today is Alan Greenspan in the 1960s. But we saw it yet. So the remote viewers saw Alan Greenspan, but first they saw a guy lecturing about money, electronic money, and that was John Kemeny. John Kemeny and Alan Greenspan were buddies in high school. John Kemeny went on to invent basic computing. If anybody's taken a computer course, you know what basic is. And that's where Roota comes from. Root A is a computer programming term. It's the basis of our electronic financial system that Alan Greenspan created. Root A is like the root of our monetary system. At some point, it'll go back to gold being the root of the system. But right now, it's just electronic blips. But the control of the electronic blips is the key. And that's what Greenspan had. And I think the U.S. still does. We can crash the system anytime we want. We are the largest debtor nation. So it would pretty much work out for the United States of America. And we have so much gold, silver, oil in the ground in the U.S. Every time we found a big hoard of it, of gold or silver or oil or any commodity, we'd lock it up in a military base or a natural park. Dianne Feinstein was notorious for it down in Southern California, huge gold area. 41% of California is owned by the federal government. And so when California says, oh, we're gonna break off from these crazy Republicans, you can't break off. You can break off, but the federal government still has 41% of your land, and you have no military. You have a National Guard that doesn't even want to be there, and the U.S. still has their military. So interesting times are coming up for California. All we need is some truth and honesty for everybody to get along, though. And I think there's a ton of gold, I'd say 1 million tons of gold in the land within that part of America. Southern California, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, massive amounts of gold there. But they're all locked up. Grand Canyon, you can't take a pebble out of the Grand Canyon. And then all the other national parks up and down the Colorado River. Colorado River is full of gold in the sand, in placer gold. And I think there's quite a few mother loads of massive amounts of gold that I've been kind of on the conspiracy side. You got to go to the conspiracy side to really get there. But I mean, it all adds up to me. And I've shown the documentation of this massive gold loan through China in 1933. It was all part of that 1933, 1934 confiscation idea. So yeah, really exciting times for gold and silver. If you have it, if you don't have any, go now. Go to your local coin shop, buy some silver. Again, I think gold will do well. Silver will do just knock your socks off. Absolutely. I see a 1-to-1 relationship, gold to silver, and right now it's 85-to-1. So if you think gold's going to do well, silver will do 85 times as well, I believe. And that's not just guessing, it's through all the research I've done for 23 years. Okay, crypto. Yeah, so crypto was invented, I think, by the U.S. government. First, it was John Kennedy inventing BASIC, Alan Greenspan inventing financial computing, and then it was Steve Jobs putting a computer on a cell phone, which is huge for cryptos. I mean, that makes crypto a viable alternative to the U.S. dollar. We can go around with a smartphone and purchase things. And it's an amazing invention, and you don't need a central bank to do that. I do think as the U.S. control system breaks down, people will be using cryptocurrencies, and you could use them or not. I don't think the U.S. government it might. The U.S. government might use cryptocurrencies, but definitely use gold and silver with the crypto blockchain identifiers on them. So that's all coming, and it's an exciting time. We've been trying to make this shift for over 100 years, and I think we're getting very close to it. As far as cryptos, which ones do I like? Obviously, I like Veritasium, but that's a very long shot. But if it pans out the way Cliff High was saying, there's going to be some extremely wealthy Veri holders if Veritasium is implemented into our exchanges all around the world. Reggie has a patent in the U.S. and has 2 in Japan. They know what's going on, and has others pending around the world. So keep an eye out for Veritasium. I really am a big fan of just 2 others. One, I wanted a cryptocurrency, because the currency, part of this equation is you're betting against the governments, but look at our governments. They'd be great to bet against these days. So obviously there's Bitcoin. I'm not happy with Bitcoin because of the kind of takeover by the deep state of the miners. I think there's a lot of deep state involvement in Bitcoin, and I can't do it. I'm not a fan. I'd rather have Bitcoin Cash, but truthfully, there's something like a Bitcoin that is a standalone currency, completely decentralized now, and that would be Litecoin. Litecoin is trading, I don't know what, 300-400 to 1 now. It should be 4 to 1. It's kind of the same silver to gold ratio is Litecoin and Bitcoin. And I think they will come closer and closer to that. Ever since Charlie sold all his Litecoin, he sold it at the top way back when, but I do think it was about decentralizing Litecoin. I remember being at the Litecoin Summit in San Francisco, and at the end, it was like the IMF came out at the very ending ceremonies. It was really bizarre, and clearly they were looking at Litecoin as a means of exchange as well. And that's what Litecoin was invented for, as a means of exchange, whereas Bitcoin was really created as a store of value. And now with Mimblewimble, which makes each transaction, you can basically, it turns it into cash. You can't track the Litecoin transactions if you use Mimblewimble. Go check that out. So those are my 2 big ones. And then for the future, hands down my favorite crypto is Theta and the Theta network of coins. Theta Fuel, T-Drop. I think Theta is going to be so integrated into every country, because I am a big fan of this form of communication, the video streaming. And I know it can't work with the system they have now. Everybody would have to build out their Wi-Fi massive amounts to grow with the future of the high-tech future. And Theta has done everything right. Oh my God. And they have patents on technology like digital rights management. Huge. If you're a YouTuber, you can control the rights to your product, and all kinds of things, amazing stuff, decentralized computing, all of this crazy stuff. And you can even create your own blockchain on the Theta network, the Bix coin. At some point I will, but you can do, Amazon can do it. And that way they don't have the problem. It's hard to run a blockchain, large decentralized blockchain, and have you be in charge, because it all of a sudden turns centralized. Like Amazon can't have an Amazon coin where they control the approval of every transaction. It wouldn't work. because it takes away the decentralized part. By putting an Amazon coin on as a sub chain of Theta, the approval happens on the Theta network. So the validators approve the transactions quickly, and then the guardians make sure the validators are doing the right job. Amazing technology, and an amazing way. I think most companies that don't have their own blockchain, which is probably going to be most companies, will use the Theta network, which is gigantic. And don't forget, it's not like these big companies don't know what Theta is. Google is in on Theta. Samsung, Sony is in on Theta. All these huge companies in the video space, in the entertainment space, are coming on to Theta. And nobody's leaving. So just keep that in mind. But it will take time for all this to be recognized. And then it's one of those things, by the time the rest of the world recognizes what Theta is, it'll be too late to get in. You want to get in when the price is low. I think the price is low now, under $1, obviously. And I think Theta and Theta Fuel and even T-Drop should do very well. In the NFT world, yeah, NFTs start off as Beanie Babies, but it's so much more to an NFT. Each one is a smart contract. So you can do anything with it, truthfully. So yeah, really excited about Theta, obviously. And that's what I have. So overall, I think the road to Roota Theory, the theory that there are people behind the scenes working to destroy the banking system and implement something new. I call them the good guys. They're taking out the deep state. I think all that is happening as we speak. And everything that I've seen and researched since I found this information on the Fed Boston website in 2007, everything that has happened has added additional proof that there are good guys out there. And they are fighting a very difficult battle, but a battle that they are winning. And the question is, when is it going to end? I believe this year on many levels, but also on many levels, it could take decades for everything to shake out. And us to move forward into something new and something more honest. I think gold and silver and cryptos represent that honesty. Not all cryptos, and not all gold and silver. You can have fake gold and silver too. And then which gold and silver forms will be in the form of money? I think it will be the U.S. mint coinage for the United States. And I've said that for a long time, and I think that's why the U.S. mint is hoarding all these gold and silver eagles. They're making them. They've claimed they've greatly expanded capacity for silver eagles, not gold. They don't need more. I think they've been making gold for a hell of a long time. But for silver, I think they had to expand the capacity to take the JP Morgan silver over 1 billion ounces and convert those into U.S. coinage for the transition. So that's where we are. There's your summary on the road to Roota. If you're confused by any of this stuff, go to roadtoruta.com, use the search function, and just search for any topic you want. And I've written hundreds of articles. There's videos. You can go to my YouTube channel, Patreon channel, all over the place. Just Google search Road to Roota or Bix Weir and say Grand Canyon, and then you'll get a lot of stuff on the Grand Canyon. Pros and cons. I mean, I'll say something and people are like, yeah, you're an idiot. He's an idiot. He's an idiot. And then I'll prove it to them. And they're like, well, maybe there's something to it. Because he just throwing crazy, exceptional, what's that line? Exceptional statements take exceptional proof, something like that. If you're going to claim something very big, you better have a lot of backup. And that's what you'll find at Road Roota, a lot of backup on. There's millions of tons of gold in the world, not 200,000. And a lot of that is in the Grand Canyon area, California, Chocolate Mountain, Arizona, Nevada, and it's all locked up. And we're just waiting. Use this fiat money system while you can. Soak up all the benefits, build your roads, your bridges, military houses, and then crash the whole thing and move on. That's where we are. Let's move on. It's Bix Weir. I'll talk to you later.